Hello everyone, welcome to the Joget DX Application Development Series webinar. My name is Penny, I'm the Marketing Associate at Joget and I'm also the moderator for today's session. In this webinar, together with our partner Innov8tif Solutions, we will be showing how you can prevent identity fraud with biometric verification with the Joget local platforms and the innovative eKYC solutions. So before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping items to go over. First of all, today's session will be recorded, and if you miss out any part of our sessions today, no worries as you have the access to the recording later. Moving on, if you have any questions in between the session, do not hesitate to reach out to us via the chat or the Q&A button in the Zoom control panel, and we will get to read as many as we can at the end of the webinar. Last but not least, you will be directed to a feedback form after today's session, and we would very much appreciate it if you could fill out the form and provide your feedback so that we can better improve our webinar in the future. With that, let's have a look on today's agenda. Here we go. Okay. To start with, we will first look into the capabilities of eKYC and biometric, followed by the advanced identity verification apps from Innov8tif, which is available on the Joget Marketplace to download. And we will have a poll session in between before we move on to the ways that you can get started on Joget DX and a Q&A at the end of today's webinar. All right, let's get started and take a look at our speakers. We have Neil, the technical pre-sales consultant from our partner, Innov8tif Solutions, where today he will be sharing how eKYC and biometric helps to secure your data privacy with features such as like the face verification and liveness check. Neil, would you like to say hi to the audience?
Hi everyone, thanks Penny, honored to be here.
No problem, thank you Neil. So we also have Adrian with us, and he's our senior technical consultant, where he will be sharing how you can get started on the Joget DX low-code platform and the Joget Marketplace to download the ready-made apps. Adrian, say hi to the audience.
Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar and thank you for joining. Over to you, Penny.
Cool. With that, let's begin the webinar, and I'll pass it over to Neil to put on his slides. Neil, you have control.
All right, thank you so much, Penny. Just let me share my screen.
No problem.
All right, once again, hello everyone. I'm Neil from Innov8tif. So first of all, we'll be going through a bit of an introduction of Innov8tif and a bit on the background. All right, so Innov8tif, we are actually, our main branch is in Malaysia. We have actually been incorporated since 2011, so more around a decade of experience already. But we do have branches as well in Singapore and Indonesia. We also do have customers in all 10 of the Asian countries, as well as local partners and teams in Brunei, Cambodia, Philippines, Vietnam, and Thailand. So Innov8tif, we actually do have a few products that we actually do supply, right? So number one would be our eKYC components, right? So it's more towards digital ID assurance, OCR, things like that. We also do provide digital low-code process automation. This is what you're familiar with Joget. We actually have a lot of experience with Joget on implementing processes and systems. We also do provide biometric authentication as one of our products. All right, so moving on. One second. All right, so moving on to the recognitions over here. As you can see over here, Innov8tif was actually able to get one of the 2 merit awards in the PICTA Awards 2019 in the B2B FinTech category. We were also able to get a Platinum Award for the Best Innovation at the SOBA Awards, right, 2020. We also do have several patent pending documents for our authentication algorithms and are also ISO certified. Okay, so moving on. So moving to a bit on the KYC and eKYC, I'll be giving a brief introduction on what is KYC and eKYC. Before that, let's go through a short poll. Penny, over to you to show the poll.
All right. Let me launch the poll. And here you go. So as shown on the screen, there are 4 choices available to choose in response to the question, whether if this is the first time you have heard of KYC and eKYC. So if you have never heard of both the terms above, then you can choose the choice number 1. But if you are familiar with KYC but unsure of what eKYC is all about, then choice number 2 is for you. And if you are very familiar with both the terms and would like to learn more about it, and you can go for choice number 3. But the last choice is for those who already have the experience in both KYC and eKYC. So take your time to vote, and we will share the results later on before we deep dive into some of the use cases. Neil, over back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Penny. All right, so I'll be explaining a little bit on KYC and eKYC, right? So first of all, what is KYC? So KYC is basically something that refers to determining and assuring your customer's identity. This is something that previously was actually used by banks, but now it has become more prevalent in our many industries, like including telcos and such. What is now eKYC is the digital evolution of KYC, where all the processes and the identification of KYC has been digitalized, right? So this is what we refer to as eKYC. So what are the components of eKYC, right? So eKYC can include things like extraction of character data, as well as extraction of digital data from the smart IDs, as well as biometric authentication, right? This refers to facial verification and liveness check. So moving on to the digitalizing some of the use cases that we actually see in Malaysia over here. There is one over here there's a company called Red One here that actually has implemented our eKYC to actually implement to augment their sale agents processes, right? So now they currently run without branch and paper. We also have another system for Boost where they are actually able to verify their IDs and onboard customers in less than 2 minutes from the previous process of about 2 days. All right, I'll pass it back to Penny to explain the results of the poll.
Okay, let me end the poll. And here we go. Okay, let's look at the results. And well, looks like KYC and eKYC are very new to 44% of the audience, but both the terms are unfamiliar to them. While we have about 6% of the audience said that they have heard of KYC, but unsure of what eKYC is all about. And we have 44% of the audience who are familiar with both the terms, but they would like to learn more about it. And another 6% of the audience say that they are experienced in both KYC and eKYC. Okay, with that, I believe the audience are getting even more excited now to understand what both KYC and eKYC can do to help businesses to better reinforce their data security. I will pass it over to Neil to let him to explain that use cases and its benefits. Neil, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Penny, for the results of the poll.
Sure.
Before that, I'll be going through the use cases and benefits that can actually be applied to your operations and processes. All right, so some of the use cases by components, right? So the components that I did mention before were things like ID capture, which is basically OCR to extract all the characters, all the words on your document. This can be your identity document, your ID, national ID, or it can be a passport. Biometric authentication. This is more of your face, your selfie to ensure that you are the correct person who is submitting the data. And document verification over here, right, which is ensuring that the document is a true copy. All right, so some of the use cases, for example, is self-service customer onboarding. As you can see from here, it does require all 3 components. However, the strength of it being compartmentalized is that actually some use cases, for example, as you see from the next 2, agent-based customer onboarding as well as over-the-counter registration. These two actually do not require biometric authentication, right? So you can actually pick and choose and components to suit certain processes. Over here needs just ID capture as well as document verification for these two. And then there are some cases that you only need biometric authentication for multi-factor authentication, right? So just to add a second layer of security for your processes. Moving on to the digital signing use case. All right, so this is just a bit on the use case for digital signing, right? So this is one of the cases that is becoming more prevalent now in this environment where everything is digitalized. So as you can see from here, the three components of the process, the workflow, is actually can be covered by the Joget, right? And this is actually something that we have already done, as well as authentication, right? So this is something that you can use the biometric authentication in order to fulfill the identity authentication requirement. So this is an app that actually Innov8tif made on Joget that actually does have the signing process all included, as well as facial verification. So other use cases, self-service use cases that are actually our Emas eKYC is being used, some is SIM card registration. Some of our customers over here, digital banking, branch banking, all this onboarding, finance, money remittance, investment, e-wallet, as well as insurance and digital signing. All right, just to drill down a little bit into the use cases of the digital bank, we actually do have one of our customers here over at UOB that we actually were able to implement our eKYC, our OCR facial recognition and document checking, as well as third-party database validation. Yeah, so we were actually able to have their uptime to 24/7. Moving on to the telco use case over here. Nowadays, telcos are more looking towards self-service, right? You don't actually need to go to a branch in order to sign up and register as a customer. So one of the use cases here, actually, they are actually able to have a self-service app, implement a self-service app that can onboard a customer fully without having to go to a branch. And also, of course, compliant to the end user registration rules. Okay, so as seen over here, the digital signing use case over here, as you can see, as I mentioned before, on the digital signing, that does mention the process as well as the authentication part from the biometric eKYC component. Okay, so now I'll be going a bit deeper into eKYC. What is eKYC and what are the components of eKYC? All right, so first of all, in order to fully understand what is eKYC, let's go a bit into KYC. Okay, so KYC is basically know your customer, right? It's a process of identifying as well as verifying the customer before key operations. So things like account opening or digital signing, things like that, in order to verify them as well as identify them. So some key components of KYC. One, first of all, would be identity document verification. This can refer to your national ID card or your passport. Number two would be face-to-face confirmation, right? Verification between the document as well as the person. Customer due diligence, right? So this can be AML checking and things like that. Periodic monitoring. Next would be the benefits of KYC, things like fraud prevention as well as customer assurance, among many. So currently there are some issues with KYC, meaning that with this current climate, it's incredibly difficult to implement businesses and processes that do not have the digital equivalent, right? So now currently all the processes are being digitalized. So some issues that KYC does face is that the non-physical verification, that means AI-powered verification of documents, is needed for KYC to evolve, as well as face-to-face verification, All right, so things like biometric, how is your app, how is your process supposed to automize the verification and authentication of people, your requesters and your customers? Third of all would be accurate data capture and processing, right? So after they take a picture of their document, their ID card or their passport, to ensure that we actually are capturing the correct information. All right, so moving on from KYC to eKYC. eKYC is basically the evolution of KYC to digitalize the whole know your customer processes. So what basically, as all the sectors, as I mentioned, of businesses are turning to digital, how to actually digitalize all the authentication and verification processes, eKYC has increased drastically, right? With industries such as telcos and rental services, self-service things, processes actually showing a significant demand for eKYC components. All right, so moving on to the key components. So the first component that we'll be talking about is the ID capture. Second will be the biometric verification. Third will be the liveness detection. And fourth and fifth is the document verification and external database checking. I'll be talking mainly on the first three. Okay, so first of all would be the ID capture. So ID capture is referring to the OCR, character recognition, as well as the character detection, right? So what this actually does, how this component actually benefits processes, is that it actually eliminates customer data entry, as well as streamlining the customer onboarding process, and also in the process preventing customer error, right? All the input errors that are quite prevalent in processes can be actually eliminated. Number two, it's also fully digital, meaning that there's no sign-up forms or paper waste that is associated with onboarding processes. All this can be also leveraged for analyze data. All right, moving to the next one would be the OKID OCR. All right, so this is actually our eKYC component for ID capture. It actually does support identity documents for Malaysia, Brunei, Cambodia, Hong Kong, Indonesia, and so forth. We also do provide support for worldwide passports, as long as they have the MRZ. What this does is automatically extracts ID number, name, ID photo, and all these relevant ID details into your application, and also supports NFC as well. All right, so moving on to biometric verification. So this is what is referring to from when you need to verify a selfie, the customer, right, with an established photo inside your database. So this can be, if it's in the same process as ID capture, this photo can be the ID card captured, right? So as I said before, as I mentioned, what it does is it ensures that the customer matches with the established photo, right? So what this does is ensures the customer's identity, ensures that there's no fraud or anything involved in the process. Moving on to OKFace, right? So OKFace is our component for biometric authentication. What this does is it actually matches the two things, the two photos, to ensure that is the correct person. It's mentioned over here as false rate of 0.00001, right? Also able to match multi-ethnic population. So a bit of the cases over here, as you can see, it's very easily done if it's below 10 years age difference between the photo and the selfie. As you can see from here, even if it's 20 to 30 years, it can actually detect whether it's the same person or not. And as you can see from the the third and fourth cases over here, where the third case is able to detect the person as the correct person, and the last case you can see over here, even though the hairstyle as well as the spectacles and face shape is actually quite similar to the selfie taken, it is actually able to detect that it's not the same person and reject this case. also able to detect despite having different accessories on. For example, as you can see here, the headscarf and non-headscarf able to detect. All right, so moving on to liveness detection, the component of liveness detection. So liveness, what this does is it ensures that the customer, right, for the selfie picture is not taking picture of another picture, right? For example, there are ways that a customer can do it, such as a printed picture or showing the picture on another device, or even deep fakes, right? So what this does, it ensures that the customer, the selfie, is live. That's the purpose of liveness detection component. All right, so OK Live. OK Live, what this does is actually ensures that the subject is a live person, right? So our technology actually allows for silent-based portrait. So what this does is it's actually just a one picture without needing to actually do any gestures. We are able to detect that it's a live person and also detect whether it's a deep fake or animated face or things like that, all in one shot. Moving on. All right, so now I've discussed the three components over here. This too is quite self-explanatory. Over here, this actually represents the whole workflow, the whole process of digital ID verification, the whole suite, right? So it has all of the components. Some of these things that you use cases that you can actually see this applied is a self-service SIM registration, things like car rental, self-service car rental, unassisted customer onboarding, and things like that. Moving on. As you can see from here, due to it being compartmentalized as well as components, you can actually implement things like biometric verification over here. So things like digital signing, identity assured digital approval, things like secure user login, you can actually implement biometric verification, right? So simply take a selfie and it can actually verify the process for you. Okay, moving on to the second poll, over to you, Penny.
All right. Here we go again, and let's put on the poll. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Right, so up to this point in time, I believe most of us have now got a better understanding of what KYC and eKYC is all about and their respective business use cases, capabilities, and the benefits. And so in poll number 2, if your businesses are currently using eKYC in your onboarding or authentication processes, you can choose choice number 1. And if you are planning to implement it in the near future, say in about 3 to 6 months' times, then you can go for choice number 2. While choice number 3 is for those who plan to implement eKYC in their businesses in the 6+ months. And if you do have any plans for the time being, then please choose the choice number 4. All right, take your time to vote for the poll, and we will be ending the poll in about 10 seconds. And let's see how many of you are already implementing eKYC in your businesses and how many of you are currently still in the planning stage. All right, 3 seconds more, and here we go. Let me end the poll. Okay, let's see. Let's look at the poll results. Well, we can see that 31% of the audience have been implementing eKYC in their businesses, while about 6% of the audience say that they are planning to implement it in the next 3 to 6 months' times. And another 19% of the audience say that they are planning to implement it in the 6+ months' time, while we have the 44% saying that they don't have any plan for eKYC at the moment. Okay, so looks like most of the audience here, half of the audience, I would say, half of the audience is currently having the eKYC being implemented in their business processes, while the other half of it is that they are still in a planning stage and have not decided on whether to implement eKYC in their business processes. So with that, I will pass it over to Neil again to show us the demo on the Irma's eKYC app and the Amas OK Face Approval app, where both the apps are actually available to download from the Joget Marketplace. Now, back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Penny. Really interesting information there. Let's move on to the demo. All right, so as mentioned by Penny, this is actually some that is actually able to, some of the apps that you're actually able to get in the Joget Marketplace. Hold on a second. One second. All right. Okay, so moving on from here, this is actually the Amas EKYC app that is inside the Joget Marketplace currently. So some of the use cases you can see from here is customer onboarding, where the user actually has to take a picture of the identity card. This can be, of course, a national ID or a passport. Simply take a picture and submit. So what this does is, of course, it extracts all the data, all the character information from your card or your passport and inputs it into the application automatically. And of course, you can add some fields, entry fields for the user to enter it. Next step would be the biometric authentication. So simply take a selfie to ensure that it is the same person. So this selfie can be used both for biometric authentication as well as liveness detection. And what it will compare with is the ID card that was just taken, right? As you can see from over here, pass. So moving on to the next step would be after the customer is onboarded, the officer in charge will then have to go in, of course, to review the request. So this is just a simple approval step for the internal user and a simple approval. All right, so that concludes the eKYC app. Moving on to the OK Face approval app. All right, so as you can see from here, this is the OK Face approval app. What you can, the use case this is more towards is biometric authentication, right? When you need your processes to actually have just another layer of security for your approval processes. For example, your approver maybe needs to have a way to identify or secure the identity of that person before conducting an action. As you can see from there, the request has just submitted, and now for the approver to review. So as you can see from here, the approver will approve the request, but of course, before approval, we'll need to verify the identity. So simply just take a selfie in order to ensure that the user, the approver, is the correct person with no option of fraud. So a simple picture once again. This picture will then be compared with a verified picture inside your database. It can be done and passed over here. And that concludes the OK Face approval app. So as I mentioned before, these two apps can actually are available in the Joget Marketplace app for download and checking. That concludes my slides. Over to you, Penny.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks, Neil, for the very interesting session on eKYC. Let me put on my slides. Right, here you go. So based on the previous presentation shared by Neil, I believe we can better accelerate our onboarding process with the face verification and the liveness check capabilities with the eKYC and OK Face approval apps, as well as being able to better protect our confidential data, since we cannot extract the ID details from verifying the face against the photo from the ID card. And with that, I will pass it over to Adrian for him to share how you can get started on Joget DX and download the ready-made apps from the Joget Marketplace. Adrian, over to you.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you, Penny. All right, thank you. Let me just take control of the screen. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to show the audience on how you can get your hands on the featured apps. So it actually boils down to two steps. The first step is to actually install the Joget DX platform, and the second one is to get the app from the marketplace. So we'll begin with the first step. So the first step is actually installing Joget. You can head over to www.joget.org and click on the Get Started button. Once you click on it, you will have several options here where you can actually install the Joget DX on-prem, or if you prefer running on cloud. And if you have other deployment options in mind, you can scroll to the bottom of the page where you can see links to articles on how you can use Joget DX on other deployment options listed here. Right, so once you have Joget DX installed and running, you can head over. So we have actually two options in how you can get the apps. So the first option is through the App Center. You get your Joget DX running and you'll be greeted with the App Center. So from the App Center, once you're logged in as the admin, you can click on the download from Marketplace button here, and it will redirect you to the Marketplace website. From here on, you only need to log in. If you haven't, you'll need to register and sign up in the Marketplace. Once you are done, all you need to do is actually click on the appropriate the featured apps, which is the Elmas eKYC app or the Elmas OK Face Approval app, and click on the install button at the top right corner. Next, the second option is once you have installed Joget DX, but you prefer to do it another time, perhaps, what you can do is go straight to the marketplace, which is at marketplace.joget.org. Ensure that you log in and look for the appropriate apps and click on download button. So once you have downloaded it, all you need to do is run your Joget DX platform. At the App Center, click on Import App and upload the relevant apps. So once you've uploaded it, you'll have it available in your App Center. So that's about it on my end. Back to you, Penny.
All right. Okay. So awesome. Thanks, Adrian. Looks like we have now got the entire idea of how we can get started on the Joget DX and download the Elmas eKYC and Elmas OK Face Approval app from the Joget Marketplace. With that, we'll move on to the Q&A session and let's see what are the questions that we have. All right, let's see. So we have the first question, and this is for Neil. So, Neil, can accessories such as like sunglasses and masks affect the accuracy rate of the apps?
Yeah, hello, Penny. Thank you so much for that question. Yeah, so the thing about accessories is most of the accessories will not affect the accuracy, meaning things like, for example, in more of the Middle East, as well as here in Malaysia, there's a lot of people wearing headscarves. This will not affect the accuracy. So things like headscarf, even sunglasses is fine, as well as things that partially obscure. However, things like masks does affect slightly the accuracy of the facial verification over here. So it's highly recommended that the selfie does not include somebody wearing a mask.
Oh, I see. Well, interesting. Okay, so the second question. So, what measures are in place for the customer data privacy? Again, Neil, this is for you.
All right, thank you, Penny. Yeah, so we actually do face a lot of concerns on data privacy because we are actually, for eKYC and KYC, is actually handling very sensitive customer information, right? Data. So there are some cases where we do actually have the option. Of course, we have our option for in-house, meaning that we are able to deploy the eKYC servers on premise, meaning that the customers are able to control all of the data access and all of the security layers that they need to implement over there. Yeah.
I see. Okay, got it. So moving on, we have another question, and this time it's about the accuracy. So how accurate is the matching rate of both the apps?
Okay, so our accuracy is actually for all the components, not only the ones in the apps, is the false matching rate is actually less than 1%, meaning that if it is if our components actually do say that is a match, it is almost more than 99% accurate.
Oh, I see. Okay, right. So let's see if you have any more question. And here you go, we have another one. So this time it's for you, Adrian. So how is the document verification work in Joget? How does it work?
Maybe I can answer that here,
Oh.
Neil, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so for the document verification, this is one component that we actually did not implement inside the two apps in that we have provided for the Joget Marketplace. This is a component that I explained earlier, is the OK ID, right? Which is a component that can be implemented, but is not implemented. So how this can work in Joget, right? Your question is it will be mostly an API call, right? So we will provide the API and the plugin, and then it can actually be called in your Joget process. Sorry. Hopefully that answers your question.
I see. Yeah. Okay, got it. So another question will be because previously we have mentioned a few. Let me see. We have mentioned quite a few of the identity card, and so that's why we have another question here that asks about, can the ID of UAE can also be captured?
All right. Okay, so for the OKID, the eKYC components that we have here, most of our customers are here in Asia, but we are able to do worldwide passports, meaning that if you have a passport that has an MRZ section, we do have all the data capture as well as document verification capabilities there. However, for the ID documents of other, let's say European IDs or so on and so forth, we actually are open to actually developing character detection as well as document verification. This discussion can be taken offline, and I'm sure that we are open for contact on that as well.
Okay, cool. So with that, let's move on to the next question. We still have plenty more left. Okay, so can the customer use notebook, workstation, or mobile phone on the apps, or is it on browser native apps such as like the Android plus iOS?
Okay. So the question is whether the apps of the Joget Marketplace can be used on Notepad, workstation, mobile phone. This is something that Joget actually handles completely, where they are able to actually resize everything nicely, whether it's on the browser, whether it's on your workstation or mobile app, mobile phone, sorry, not mobile app, whether you access it from your mobile phone or anything, it's actually automatically resized. So this is actually handled entirely by Joget DX, which is very, very convenient for the customer. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, cool. Then how about does the facial recognition able to test on a printed image and then blend it on the face? That the printed image that's being blended on the face.
Yep. This is actually one of the more common ones as well. Yeah, definitely. So this is one of the cases that we have actually tested the OKID, the biometric authentication process.
I see. Okay, all right. Let's see if there's any other more questions. Okay, so we have another one. So Neil, can you please compare the confidence or the error rate when we compare the conventional over the counter verification at a bank, for example, and virtually by using the eKYC solution? So in other words, right, it's more on like can eKYC verify better, or is it even worse than a bank staff over the counter perform in person?
Thank you for that question, Penny. It's a very good question over there.
Mm.
Yeah, so the comparison rates, the comparison, the rates are very similar, right? So
Oh.
it's neither a lot higher nor too much lower than that lah, than the bank staff. This is because if even the bank staff who see the ID card and look at the person is not able to detect a change, right? You cannot
Oh.
expect the AI to actually able to see the difference, right? So for example, things like twins actually does have a bit of a, this is a bit of a blind spot where it's actually there is no proper detection for this lah. So twins and things like that will have a bit of an issue. Yeah.
I see. Okay, got it. So let's move on to the next question. So let's see. Okay, so is the documentation verification, such as like the OTA document, able to determine the genuinity of the document? For example, is it able to determine the hologram in the Malaysia MyCard?
Yeah, thank you for that question.
Mm.
Yes, definitely. So for the document verification that we have implemented, I didn't go through too in depth in this webinar in order to save time because it's quite an extensive number of checks that we do. But yes, definitely hologram is one of the things that we check, as well as landmarks and many others things that we do check for the genuinity.
I see. Okay, all right. Then we have another question for you, Neil. Let's see. So, how is OCR data retained if the solution is being deployed on premise, and is the OCR performed on prem?
Thank you so much. Yes, so it depends on, of course, it depends on what the deployment method is chosen, We do offer, if need be, on-premise is provided, meaning that if need be, all of the OCR engine, the verification engine, everything can be deployed on-premise, meaning that, of course, this would satisfy the data privacy concerns here lah. But for default, we actually we do provide the API call, meaning that the OCR engine, everything is actually on our end. Hopefully that is clear enough.
I see. Okay, interesting. So with that, let's see if you have any more questions here. All right, so I have another one here. How do you check or verify for passport document? Because there are different passport layout and format for different countries all over the world. And what are the ways that you can actually check and verify it?
Thank you for that question.
Yep.
So one of the main things that we do check is the MRZ, actually the code at the bottom of your passports. So there are many things that you can check about that, as well as some of the landmarks. So the thing is, even though there are many different formats around the different countries, as long as we are able to detect the country, then we are able to, of course, compare the format and make sure that the format is the same, is uniform and according to the format that the country is supposed to be from. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So, moving on, right? We have another question here. Because now that, as shown earlier, we have both the apps, the OTA eKYC, the AMAS eKYC and the AMAS OTA Face Approval app. But I believe most of the audience here is very curious because is it a must for us to deploy both the apps together? Because or is it we are wondering if is this a two different separate solutions or is it that need to be combined into one?
Thank you, Penny. These are actually two different applications. So if you do have a use case that does require for the whole full suite of eKYC, right? If you need the OKID capture and you need the biometric authentication as well as the no, sorry, I believe these are the two inside the eKYC. Then you can download the eKYC application. If you have a use case that only requires biometric authentication, then you actually can get the OK Face approval app. Yeah, so you can actually choose which one is more relevant to what you want to implement lah.
Okay, got it. Interesting. So another question. What is the so-called MR that mentioned earlier in the passport? So all passports in the world using it, or is it that only a specific countries that uses the passport? The MRG, sorry, MRG.
Oh, apologies. Yeah, so what the MRZ is basically a code at the bottom of the passport, where when you flip to your first page, where it has all the front page of your passport, which has all your passport number and everything on it. The MRZ is the code at the bottom, right? So on the question whether all passports have MRZ, I do believe so, but unfortunately, I can't say for sure. I'll need to check with my team on that lah.
I see. Okay, got it. So with that, I believe we have come to the end of the Q&A session. We are good to go. So before we end the session, we do have a few Joget ecosystems to share across. Okay, so before you go, feel free to check out the Joget ecosystem where you can enroll in our Joget Academy short courses, download the redeeming apps from the Joget Marketplace and customize it to suit your business needs. And you can also watch the video tutorials from the Joget DX video tutorials to learn more about the Joget DX platform. And last but not least, don't forget to provide your feedback in the feedback form directed to you after the webinar. And once again, thanks Neil and Adrian for bringing us a very insightful session on eKYC and Joget DX, as well as every attendees here for joining the session and staying till the end with us. Right. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and have a nice day.